Josephus is a Jewish historian who lived in the 1st century. He was actually a general of the Jewish revolt against the Romans, which began in the year 66. He was the leader of the Jews in the Galilee, and when the Jews were defeated in the Galilee, he was captured by the Romans, and he decided, okay, I'm just going to help the Romans out. Instead of continuing the revolt, we have no chance of defeating the Romans, I'm going to survive. He was a survivor. The importance of Josephus is, excuse me, once he got under Roman rule, one of the things he immediately saw is that the Romans, under the influence of the Greeks, despised the Jews. And one of the things the Romans were claiming is the Jews were this tribe of lepers that was so sick and miserable they were kicked out of Egypt. And so he sat down after the war, after the rebellion, and he wrote a history of the Jews. And this is the first full-scale history that survived of the Jewish people, beginning with creation, besides the Bible I'm talking about, and ending with the Jewish war against the Romans in the year 74 at Masada. And to this day, Josephus is a key source because he's a Jew who lived through this period of the temple standing, the temple being destroyed, and what things were like after the temple. He actually had been in the temple. He was from a family of priests. He had interacted with Jewish groups, so he's a very important source. And he tells us all kinds of important pieces of information about ancient Judaism. One of the things we need to do with Josephus, just like with any ancient source, is keep reading. And we have to look at the context. Josephus was writing primarily to two audiences. The main audience was the Greeks, who he was trying to convince that the Jews were not a tribe of lepers, were an ancient nation that goes back to the time of Abraham and Moses, and we have an ancient culture and an ancient tradition, and you've got to respect us. The Greeks respected ancient things. The other group he was writing to were Jews in the diaspora, trying to convince them not to rebel against the Romans. And that was a minor secondary purpose he had. Here in his book called Antiquities of the Jews, the second book, section 276, he says as follows: God declared to Moses his holy name, which had never been discovered to men before, concerning which it is not lawful for me to say anymore. Now, some historians have looked at this and said, well, in the time of Josephus, they no longer said the name of the Creator, the name of the Father, the name that was revealed to Moses. Because that's what he means by it's no longer lawful for me to say anymore. Now, it's really interesting that the word for lawful Josephus used in that passage is a word that he doesn't normally use. And it's the Greek word thematos. Say thematos. And it turns out that this is a technical term that has a very specific connotation and explains why he made the statement in the 1st century. And let's look at one of the commentaries on Josephus. The commentary on Josephus says the word thematos, lawful, used by Josephus here is a technical term in the mystery cults. Josephus thus takes the opportunity to impart to Judaism the flavor of a mystery cult. Now, what is that about? What that's about is there were these religions, they call them cults, but they were really just temple worshiping religions. They had a temple, and they had all kinds of mystery that you had to go through in order to become part of their religion. And those were called the Greek mystery cults. And Josephus wants to impress the Greeks, and so to impress the Greeks, he kind of presents Judaism kind of disingenuously as a mystery cult, because that he knows that will impress his Greek readers. And he wants two things to impress the Greeks more than anything. One is the name of the Jewish God, which he makes it out that this is a mystery that I'm not allowed to reveal it to you simple people who haven't been inducted. It's a mystery. It's a secret. There's a second thing. Remember, keep reading. What's the other thing he says is a mystery that's only the initiated Jews are allowed to know? In Antiquities, Book 3, Section 90, he says, and they all heard a voice that came to all of them from above. This is describing the revelation at Sinai, which Moses wrote down 2 tablets. That's the 2 tablets of stone with the 10 Commandments, which it is not lawful, thematos, for us to set down directly, but their import we will declare. Plain English, what is Josephus saying? The 10 Commandments are so secret and holy, I can't tell you Greeks what they are. I can tell you the basic gist of the 10 Commandments, but the actual words that God revealed to Israel on Mount Sinai are a secret. They're a thematos, that it's forbidden to reveal to the Greeks. This is what Josephus tried to convince his Greek readers, and they didn't know any better. How would they know the difference? Right? So he gives them a summary, a paraphrase of the 10 Commandments, but not the actual commandments, which he says it's thematos, too unlawful to reveal. And that has to do with trying to present Judaism as this ancient mystery that would impress the Greeks. Are the 10 Commandments really a mystery? No. Is it true that in the first century it was forbidden to reveal to people what the Ten Commandments really said? No. So do you think it was really forbidden to reveal what the name was? Not. I mean, if we're consistent, if we keep reading, the name and the Ten Commandments are both treated as these mysteries by Josephus, and they weren't mysteries. He was just trying to, impress his Greek audience. And this is why it's important to look at the full context of the ancient sources. People will bring you one verse or one passage or one sentence out of context, and they'll say, look, I've proven my point. And you really need to get into the depths of it and get to the sources and keep reading. Keep reading. Get to the sources and find out what it really says. If you want the truth, if you have the Nehemiah agenda of uncovering the truth, you've got to keep reading. Here's a really interesting passage I came across in the Mishnah, the writings of these rabbis, describing the service of Yom Kippur every year in the temple, where the high priest would come, and it says, when the multitude standing in the courtyard of the temple heard the explicit name, that's the name Yehovah, come forth from the mouth of the high priest, they would kneel prostrate and fall on their faces and then say, blessed is the glorious name of his kingdom forever. Now, why is this source important? If the multitudes heard the high priest speaking the name in the temple, and they bowed down on their hands and knees and they said, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed, blessed is the glorious name of his kingdom forever, could it have been a secret? No. I guess it wasn't a very well kept secret. And what's really interesting about this, I didn't realize this until I was doing this research, I actually rehearsed this ceremony with my father growing up in the synagogue. In every Orthodox synagogue in the world to this day, during the Yom Kippur service, at certain points in the service, 10 times during the service, the entire congregation will bow down on their hands and knees, like the Muslims do, but they'll bow down on their hands and knees the way that they used to bow down in the temple. And if you ask the rabbis why you do this, they say this is a rehearsal of what we used to do in the temple. Every time the high priest spoke the name, the Shem HaMefurash, the explicit name of the Creator, and what we will once again do when the Messiah comes. So I actually rehearsed this growing up and didn't even realize it until I was researching this. Now here's the point, here's the bottom line. The name was not a secret in the first century, and it wasn't forbidden in the first century. Every Jew who came to the temple heard the name spoken in the temple by the high priest at least 10 times. In addition, they heard it recited every day by the priests who were reciting the blessing. The blessing, which it doesn't go Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. It really says Yevarechecha Yehovah v'yishmerecha. Yehovah bless you and keep you. Ya'er Yehovah panav elecha v'chuneka. Yehovah shine his face towards you and be gracious towards you. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yehovah lift his face towards you and give you peace. Every single time, 3 times a day, the Jews would hear the priest say that in the temple, and maybe the high priest was mumbling a 12-letter name under his breath. I don't know, maybe that's why the temple was destroyed. But the rest of the priests, they were reciting the actual name, and this is what the ancient rabbinical sources say, that it had to be the name. They weren't allowed to use a replacement in the temple, because the passage ends, and they shall place my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. So even the rabbis who today forbid the name and say it's a secret we mustn't share with the Gentiles, and really even with our own people, it's only revealed once every 7 years from rabbi to disciple, even those rabbis admit at the time of the temple, everyone knew the name. It was proclaimed by the priests and everyone heard it.